Hello and welcome back to our tutorial. In this part of our tutorial, we'll be looking at the more sorting options. We'll look at how to sort data in Excel using the value fields and the we're looking at label filters and value filters. So we've covered sorting with filters, right? Sorting with the regular filters. We've covered sorting A to Z. We've covered Z to A. We've looked at the more sorting options. Now let's take our time to go into the label filters. So before we touch any of these sorting parameters, let's pay attention to the structure of our data in the pivot table. Now, I told you these are rows, right? These are all rows. These are all rows and their associated values. This is a row label. Now, all of these are labels. They are all labels. They are text data, right? They are text data. So when we sort based on label filter, we are filtering based on these labels. So for now, I'm going to get rid of all of these filter. So set this to all and set this to all, right? So that's it. All these filtering options, the filtering parameters are gone. Now, what does it mean to sort based on the label filter? Filtering by label, right? Label filters. So these labels are texts. The labels are texts. So each text is unique. Just consider that each text is unique from the title field. Since you're sorting, we set our title, right? We set our title field to be the members of the title field are what we have here. So this Avatar, Titanic, Jurassic World, these are the titles of the movies and they're all unique. So if you are sorting based on the label filter, if I say equal, right? Labels that equal. So what is really happening behind the scene is this. Excel will look at a sequence of characters that I pass in, and to compare that sequence of characters with the labels and find any sequence of characters that actually match my input value, what I'm searching based on. That's what is going to be returned. Let's look at that. So if you say labels, right? These are the labels that equals. Now I'm going to type in avatar, AVATER, right? Avatar. So labels that equal avatar, and I say okay. You getting nothing. Let's see. There must be a spelling error somewhere because I'm getting it's returning nothing. So let me go ahead and clear that. So that's AVATAR, not CER. So again, that was a mistake I made, but then with that mistake, you could see that because there was no title, there was no label that equaled AVATER, that's why we have nothing return. So let's spell this properly. Label filters that equal AVATER, right? So we are spelling this carefully. So make sure your spellings are careful and correct. AVATER, and we'll say okay. Now the only label that is returned is avatar. Like I said, I'm passing in the sequence of characters. Excel looks at the sequence of characters that I'm passing in, and it matches that sequence with the given labels. So it's checked for this sequence AVATER, and if there's no sequence that matches the sequence I'm passing in, it returns null, right? The output is empty. So remember the time I made this mistake to use E instead of A, you see, we get nothing in return. But when I set the correct sequence, right? When I set the correct sequence, I get the gross revenue and the sum of budget that relates to this label avatar. So sorting on label filters, we have to make sure that if we are using the label filter that equals, right? Using label filters that equals, it has to be absolutely certain that you're spelling it correctly, because if you get the spellings wrong, if you get the sequence wrong, it's all going to be wrong. Like you're getting nothing in return. Hence, the does not equal. Like it does not equal will return everything that does not, that is not what we put in. So Excel will go into the pivot table and it will return everything that is not the value that we put in right now. So if I say avatar again, AVATAR, everything will be returned except avatar. So if I say OK to that, so you can see there is no avatar being returned. There's Titanic, Jurassic World, Avengers, Dark Knight. There's absolutely no avatar because we are saying Excel should return values that does not equal avatar. So let's say you have, let's get a more practical use for this. So equals, like let's go to the equals. Let's say you're looking for a particular name, right? You're asked to return a particular name of an individual from your data set. Now, all you have to do is type in the name of the individual, and Excel will return all the data that concerns that particular individual, that particular person. So if you have a list of students and you want to get the data for a particular student, all you have to do is type in the name of that particular student and say from the labels that equal, say the name is Sam, S-A-M. Excel will return only values that have the label Sam attached to them. That's a more practical use of sorting with labels that equal, right? So these are only text-based text-based data type. So talk more about data type in a further tutorial. Like later in the course, we'll talk more about data type. So you shouldn't worry about data types just yet. But for now, focus on what we're talking about. Don't worry about data types just yet. I'll break that down in a future tutorial. So now we can, instead of closing this and repeating this process over and over again, you can use this drop down and change your sorting types, your sorting option. Everything is accessible inside here. So we've talked about the equals, we've talked about the does not equal. Now let's talk about is greater than. So is greater than. Now how does this is greater than work? This is, you need to pay attention to this. We are looking at labels, right? Alphabets A to Z. Now by default, alphabets do not have numeric value attached to them. A is just A, B is just B, C is just C, all the way up to Z. But they have hierarchy, right? They have hierarchy, and the hierarchy is not a real hierarchy. It's just the way we list all the alphabets from A to Z. There's no real hierarchy. There's no way to measure if A is greater than Z. Right? There's no logical arguments to support that kind of observation. But when we list these things out, right, in a table, A comes first, right? A comes first, B comes second, C comes third, D comes fourth. So when we are looking at values that are greater than, so if we are looking at greater than, we only take in one argument, in this case, one argument. Like just one text. So if I say values greater than D, watch what happens when I say okay, values greater than Z. So A, in this case, A is the lowest, A is the least, Z is the highest, right? Just try to follow along with the analogy. A is the lowest, right? So A is lower than B, B is lower than C, D is lower than E. So when we say values greater than D, we are looking at E, F, G all the way up to Z. Hope you're getting the the progression. A, B, C are lesser than D. The way Excel thinks about it, A, B, and C. So A, B, and C are lesser than D. So if we move up all the way to say K, everything from A to J is lesser than K. So when we say values greater than, for instance, K, we are looking at L up all the way to Z because Z is the highest. So values greater than D return E, F, return from D. So from D, we'll never find A, B, C in this list. So if we can prove me wrong, I stand corrected if anyone can prove me wrong on that. From my experience, when we get values greater than D, we will never get A, B, or C. We'll get E, we see E. We also get an F, there's a D. Let's see an F, there's an F. Alright, there's an F right here. So F. Is that Fast and Furious? Not sure. Okay, Fatal Attraction. That's an F. There's a G. Alright. So there's a I. There's that I. That's iRobot. So we get everything from D up to Z. Right? Values greater than D. Now, same thing occurs when we look at values. So filters greater than, say, J, right? Remember, one argument. So just pass in one word, one argument, one character greater than J, and then we get from J up to Z. Movies that begin with J up to Z. We're not going to get anything from A to anything less than J. Alright? That's how you use the values greater than. So values greater than. So we've talked about equal, we've talked about not equal. Alright, so we just jumped to greater than. Alright, let's take it procedurally this time. So let's look at begins with. Like I say, it begins with. Now, begins with works in two ways. You can use one argument or we can start with a sequence. So we can say movies, right? Labels that begins with A. So we type in A and voila. Everything that begins with just A will be returned. So we can scroll through our data sets and only things that begins with A. Right? Everything that begins with A is since we are now actually sorting based on. So if we go and say begins with, let's do ants. So now this is a sequence, right? A and N and C is a sequence. If you want to learn more about sequencing, comments, right? Leave a comment in the comment section. I just make a comment. If I get enough requests for this kind of videos, I'm going to take my time to create a video explaining all of this in detail. So for now, let's just say movies that begins with A-N-T, with this sequence of A-N-T, and we'll say okay. Alright, so this sequence A-N-T, we have Ant-Man, we have ants, we have ants women, what's that? Antoine Fisher, and we have Antitros, we have Atlantica, on ice, we have Atlantic Edge. Right, so we use a sequence. So I told you it works in two ways. You can use a character and you can use a sequence. Now that's what begins with does for us, and does not begins with is the opposite of begins with. So if we say does not begins with, so if we use the word again, and now every movie, right, not just movie, every label, let's be more professional, right? This time let's just be more professional. Every label that does not begin with A-N-T will be returned. So if it starts with A-N-T, we're cutting it off. If it has any beginning that is not A-N-T, it will be returned. So now we get a different values. So all of these, none of them begin with A-N and T. So if you find any, take a screenshot of it and leave it in the comments. I just tell me something is not working as I have explained, and I will come back to the video and make correction. But I'm very certain I've used this for quite a long time. It works super fine. So you will not get anything that is not ANT, right? Everything ANT we will not get. So I'm talking about sequences. Remember, I'm not pronouncing it as ant, right? That's a word. It's a sequence A and N and T, ANT. It's quite a different thing. If you want to learn more about sequences, just leave a comment. With enough comments, I will attend to that. So the next thing on the list is ends with. Ends with is the back side of begins with. So if it begins with a sequence, or if it ends with a sequence or has a character at the end, so those two things. So one, it either has a character at the end. So let's look at T, movies that labels that ends with T. All right, T. So all of this ends with the character T. So you can see Pirates of the Caribbean, Chess, The Dead Man's Chess, nice movie. Dark Knight, nice movie. Inside Out, nice movie. Maleficent, nice movie. All nice movies, right? All great movies here. So these are all ending with the character T. Alright, so let's look at movies that labels that end with the sequence night, right? So I just saw something that ends with, so label filters ends with, so let's use NIGHT. So, right, night. So all of this ends with the sequence. Now, this is what we're talking about. These are sequences, not words, as you would think. As a human being, you think it's a word, but as a computer, it thinks of it as sequences. Right? Computers don't know words. So if you do something like natural language processing, which I might touch some other time in the future, natural language processing, you understand why I say these are not words, these are just sequences. So NIGHT, 30 days of night, right? That's cool. And then look at this, the dark night, KNIGHT. Excel is not bothered with the key because we're not looking for a word, we're looking at the sequence. So it ends with this sequence of NIGHT, and Excel considers that to include in our data. So again, there's a sequence here, NIGHT. So the movie that ends with good night, tonight. So there are a lot of them, demon nights, right? So these movies have the sequence, ends with that particular sequence. That's how ends with and does not ends with works. So it's the back side of the begins with, same principle, same does not end with is the same as is the opposite of the ends with. So you can try that out. Now we look at contains, right? So labels that contains. So contains. Now use the question mark to represent any single character. Use the star to represent any series of characters. Same thing we've talked about. Characters, a single character or a sequence of characters. So I've used Excel for a long time. I'm a data scientist, so I didn't think about these things from the perspective of the computer, so to speak. So quite interesting way to think about these input values when you work with data for a very long time. You're not just thinking about things as a human being, you start thinking from a computer perspective of things. So let's look at contains. Let's give it a sequence, because if we use a character, we're going to get a whole bunch of data being returned. So let's look at own. So I'm saying something, we own the night. So if we use a sequence of character WN, so any movie, any label that contains this sequence will be returned. So say that. So we're looking at DOWN, down, built down, ups, grown, Larry Crow. So we're looking at that this particular sequence, W and N in sequence. So these are all the movies that contains that sequence. Now, in a practical case, what if you're looking for a person's name in your data set and you don't remember their name in full? All you know about the person is that the person's name sounds like, right? We've all been in that situation where you can't remember exactly what the name is, but the name sounds something like, so you can say if the name sounds something like Daniel, right? So you can look at things that have a sequence of just the parts you can remember. Now that's a very good one. So these are the way Excel helps to sort data. So does not contain is the opposite of the contains. Greater than, we have looked at that. Greater than or equal to, it usually works the same way with greater than. Then less than, just the opposite. Now, interesting case is the between. All of this you can practice on your own. We've talked a bunch about all of this. Let's look at the more interesting one, the between. Now, this is where it gets interesting. So, it's between. Now, if we can grab two range, right? So we take a start point and an end point. So these are positional arguments. We take a start point and an end point. So let's say movies between G and A, B, C, E, F, G, G, okay, H, I, J, K. Let's go with K, between G and K. And so G, so if we start from G and J, I, J, so we will not get anything below or above that parameter we've settled for. Between G and K, these are the items we will return. So these are the items we will return based on the fields, right? Based on those fields, these are the items we are going to return between G and K. So that's how we use the value, the sorting based on label filters. Now, if you're done with all of this sorting, you can go ahead and clear the filter. So go ahead, if you're done, clear the filter, and all that sorting operation is gone. Very useful tool, very, very beautiful sorting tool in Excel. If you have any questions, make sure you leave your comments, right? Comments, leave your question in the comments. I will attend to your questions as soon as I can, speedily. And make sure you've subscribed to the channel. It's very important that you subscribe so you're always up to date with upcoming tutorials. And if you are kind enough to like the video, more people will find this video on the internet, on YouTube, and they'll watch it, right? So it helps the channel to grow, it helps me to create more content, and helps the community to grow. So I really appreciate that you subscribe and you like this video. Again, if you're confused, you need more explanation, leave a comment, or you can leave your comment in the WhatsApp group, right? I'm going to drop the link for you if you're not in a group to join the community. And until next time, keep practicing. Like I said, always have a separate workbook for your personal practice, because nothing beats practice. Like, there is no substitute for practice. So you work hard on it. The little we've learned, keep practicing until the next time, until the next chapter. So you keep practicing until it becomes second nature to you. All right, so that will be all for now. Thank you for watching to the end, and see you next time.